Yo, Ambitions is back, and the last scene had me gagged. Let's talk. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to KRSTV. This is your boy Kenny. And remember, subscribe to my channel. Click that bell so you get notifications every time I drop a video. Also, follow all of my information that I put in the description box as well. Now, this is Ambition Season 1, Episode 12. And the name of this episode is The Thrill Is Gone. I am so glad this show is back because the mid-season finale had a whole lot of things that went down. One senior died. Joaquin was kidnapped. So much was happening. Daphne was found unconscious, dressed in her dominatrix wear and everything. It's just a whole lot was going on. So let me begin with this episode. Oh yeah, and another thing that happened, Amara goes to Titus' room to find Stephanie dressed in his shirt while he pretty much is wrapped around in a towel. So yeah, and then of course, Stephanie being with her mean maniacal ass was like rubbing it all up in Amara's face that she fucked her husband. Turns out all that appeared wasn't really what went down, because the first scene we get in this episode, Amara and Titus are going back and forth about Stephanie, and he tells her that, look, nothing happened. I went into the bathroom to take a shower and she got undressed and put my shirt on, and when you knocked on the door, that's what you saw. Nothing happened. And she was like, well, why the hell was she even in your room? And he said, I invited her up there. And she says, if I didn't come when I did, would have had sex? And he was like, I don't know. It crossed my mind. But the only thing that stopped me was you. So even though, Amara has done her thing with Damien and all that, he still has love for Amara. And you can tell that Amara still loves him. But right now, he's still reeling off of the fact that he found out episodes previously that her relationship with Damien was more intense than she revealed. And he's still on that at this point. So that went down. Same time that's going down, Rondell and Evan are shooken up because, Senior was murdered back in the alley of the store. They immediately think Greg Peters is behind it, but something is telling me that Greg Peters had nothing to do with this shit. And that there were far more entities that I think could have taken place as to why Senior was murdered, and there were other people who had something to gain from his murder as well. So we see, Evan is there to comfort Rondell. Inez is there as well, Bella's mother. He gets a call and he just leaves, because, and we later on find out the reason why he left. And then also Kent Hamilton showed up. And I'm thinking this is interesting because the last time we saw Kent, he had went off when he had found out that that Rondell was considering going into business with Greg Peters. He immediately flipped out and just left. And she's like, oh, it's kind of funny. Did you show your face after all this time? And he was like, yeah, I acted like an ass. She says, oh, yeah, you were an ass. And they go back and forth with that. And, before Evan leaves, that's when Kent showed up and he told Kent, look after my sister. So they go back and forth. And then the next thing you know, we see Inez is there as well. And, Kent's there. And they both are talking to Rondell, and then finally Stephanie shows up, and she tells Kent to walk Inez home, and then Stephanie and Rondell go back and forth. And in this scene, I was like, Rondell, you can blame Stephanie all you want, but you're partly responsible as to why your father's dead too, because she did put a bodyguard, on detail to protect the both of you, and you pretty much, sent the bodyguard away. So that left him open for whoever had an agenda to kill him. But she lets Stephanie know that, you've done enough, because Stephanie is definitely shaken up because she loved Senior. She can't stand Rondell, but she loved her father-in-law. And she had a good rapport with him. So the fact that Senior is dead, it's hurt her as well. And, because at the end of the day, that's still her children's grandfather. So, that definitely hit Stephanie too. But Rondell right now is just so mad that she's taking out all this rage on Stephanie. And she tells Stephanie to get out and all that shit. And I'm like, wow, girl. Because at the end of the day, Rondell, you're partly responsible as well. Because if you didn't, if you were in your mind thinking that Greg wasn't dangerous, you were sadly mistaken. I mean, not only is Greg dangerous himself, he has a dangerous family who has a far sinister agenda than him. So there's a lot of keys that she doesn't have, and she allowed her pride and her ego get in the way, and she made certain moves that eventually led to Senior being killed. So, in my opinion, Rondell is just as responsible, because if she would have taken the fact that Stephanie put a bodyguard on detail, that should have been a warning that, there are certain evils out there that could be harmful to you and your father. So then we go to Bella's apartment. Now we remember Bella was riding Ignacio like a motorbike while Joaquin was taken out of his room, and she was completely unbeknownst that anybody was in her house, because the next morning she's telling Joaquin to get up, and she's walking all over the apartment, and she's like, Joaquin, I'm not playing games, you need to come out here. And then the next thing you know, she goes into his room and notices that he's not there, because at first she opened the door and just told Joaquin to get up. She didn't even go into the room. Then she going all over the whole apartment talking, and Joaquin is not even responding. It's not until she goes into the room and notices that not only he's gone, but then there's a ransom title. I'm sorry, there's a ransom note, and that's when she immediately goes crazy, and she immediately contacts Evan, who at the time was comforting Rondell, finding out about his father dying. He immediately leaves to go to her, and Bella and Evan go back and forth, about this whole situation, like who would want to take Joaquin. And immediately he thought, well, what about Roderick? And she was like, yeah, Roderick sent me a cake, that said whore, but he wouldn't do anything to hurt Joaquin or whatever. And, what's going on with that? So they kind of go back and forth with that situation. Also, we come to find out Daphne, the girl that Evan found unconscious on the bed, she actually didn't die. But what Evan did was that he pretty much, had her moved into a car where she was found, and they rushed her to the hospital. And if that didn't happen, she would have died. But we see that there's a familiar person who's disguised as a nurse who's trying to finish her off. And we later on come to find out that person was the one who strangled her, and as to when Evan came to her place, she was unconscious. And we come to find out who that person is later, and I'm about to reveal that. So we see all that going on. Amara goes to see Daphne, and she notices that there's a nurse. The first nurse says that, okay, I'll be back to, to check your vitals or whatever. And she goes to talk to her, saying that, look, you need to cooperate with the DOJ, because I can not only get you immunity, but I can also get you around the clock protection. And then all of a sudden another nurse came in. She says, oh, I'm here to, to do her vitals. And she said that there was another nurse who just said that. And she says, no, I'm the only nurse that's assigned to this room. So immediately Amara know, oh, there's some sinister shit going on. So she orders 24/7 surveillance, on Daphne's room. So then we see that Evan and Stephanie do a press conference to address their father, to address his father's death. And we see that Greg Peters is watching. And immediately Greg is kind of giving like this look like, wow. And he already knows that he's the prime suspect. He already knows this shit. But then again, I said, I don't think Greg had anything to do with Senior's murder. And we later on see that Evan gets a call from the kidnappers, and they demand $1 million in order for Joaquin to be returned back safely. Um, then we see that later on, Amara goes to visit Rondell, and they pretty much have a good rapport with each other. She offers her condolences, and we see that uh, Rondell got her daddy's shotgun, and she's cleaning it or whatever, and she takes the gun from her, and they pretty much have a conversation, and she says that if Greg Peters was behind this, I will do everything in my power to see to it that he goes down, because she already got a case that she's building against the mayor's office, and Greg Peters and Evan and Daphne are all tangled up in that shit. Then Stephanie shows up. Rondell was like, let me take this gun upstairs before I lose my cool. I'm like, you got all this anger out on Stephanie, but Stephanie isn't the one that got Senior killed, baby. And then we get this whole tit for tat between Amara and Stephanie, and I was laughing like shit because Stephanie immediately turned back to the bitch that we love, and she was like, "Oh, is there something you need to say, Amara?" And Amara was like, "Bitch, why would you pull the stunt that you did the other night? Seems like you real desperate, because Titus told me everything of what happened." And then Stephanie goes back and forth with her and was like, "Well, bitch, he still wants me. And remember, he wanted to hurt me by sleeping with my best friend. And the only reason why he married you was because you turned up pregnant with a kid that you didn't carry to term. But yeah, he still wants me," and all of that. And pretty much, Amara lets her ass know that, look, keep this shit up, and I'm gonna pretty much have you and Greg Peter handcuffed ankle to ankle. And then she was like, all of the best people in the world have tried to come for me, and they failed. So the grave you dig for me will be the one that you rot in. And I was like, see, these damn two, they literally have this frenemy situation that is really about to go beyond this. That's just insane. So I'm just waiting to see what's going to happen with this whole situation, because Amara's working her case, and we know that Stephanie's ruthless, and she will do any and everything to get her way. So then we see that Bella is comforted by her best friend. Now, this best friend, since I've seen her, I've always had this side eye with this bitch, because it seemed like this bitch had a sinister agenda. She was jealous because Ignacio was more into Bella and everything, and she's jealous because Bella's successful and she has all these connections, and she wants what Bella has. And then Bella and her talk about Joaquin being kidnapped and that they want $1 million. And, she's merely saying that, well, if they tell you don't call the police, then don't call the police. You need to give them what they want, because they will hurt Joaquin if that doesn't happen. And I'm just looking at this bitch like, something ain't right with her. Just is what it is. Then we see that, we see that, Rondell and Inez have a conversation. Inez is really being there supporting her, and, Rondell starts questioning, is this my fault? That maybe if I would have just signed that contract with Greg Peters, my daddy would still be alive. I'm like, but the one thing you don't understand, that English Rose thing was far bigger than Greg Peters, which we found out on the season finale when Stephanie's father was talking cash shit to Greg Peters like he was a little boy. So yeah, that English Rose deal was far bigger than Greg. Greg was just one of the peons of the whole chess game. So we see that but then again, it's like Rondell was taking all this frustration out on Stephanie, because personally, she does feel that maybe if I would have played my cards differently, my dad would still be alive. So then we get a scene with Greg. Evan is there with his gun, and he got his goons going through his apartment, searching and looking and everything. He is like wondering, what the hell y'all here for? And he's like, I'm not surprised, that you here. And besides, I already know y'all think I'm the prime suspect and the FBI is on my tail, but I had nothing to do with Senior's murder. I'm like, yeah, because he could have had Senior killed a long time ago if that's how he really wanted to run it. But he's letting it be known that I had nothing to do with this shit. So they search the place and they pretty much tell Evan no sign of him. And then like Evan is like, oh, I'm sorry, Greg is like, what the hell? What's going on? And Evan wouldn't tell him shit. Reason is he was there to not only confront him about his father's murder, but also to see if Joaquin was being held there for ransom. So then we see that Amara comes home. She sees the refrigerator open and she immediately knows that somebody's in her house. There's a stranger in her house. So she gets the knife only to find out it's her damn daughter. Her damn daughter's supposed to be at school working on finals, but she pretty much tells her that she quit school. And the reason is she quit school is because her and that white boyfriend of hers, Razor, broke up. Oh, that scene was funny as hell because she calls Titus in. So Titus and Amara are sitting down with their daughter. And pretty much they let her know that you don't let no boy dictate your livelihood. Like, honey, you can stay here for a few days to kind of get yourself together, but your ass is going back to school. We ain't pay all this damn money for you to just walk away from school over some boy named Razor. And she just goes upstairs and was like, I can't believe this. I was like, poor baby. I was like, poor thing. She done fell in love with old boy, and then old boy broke up with her. She talked about how he blocked her on Snapchat and how he erased all of their Instagram photos. I was too keyed for that. That was hilarious. But then Amara and Titus said that, look, we're going to try to keep up face, because she doesn't need to know about our situation, that we're living separate right now. But we're going to be here to care for our daughter until she goes back to school. So then we see that finally Evan goes to visit Daphne at the hospital. He sees the guards that Amara had put up there, and he knows that Amara is building a case against him in the mayor's office. And pretty much, Daphne says that, I'm glad she did that because I almost got killed twice. And it's the same woman. She tried to kill, she strangled me and left me for dead. And then she came in disguise as a nurse to do the job. Amara picked up on it, and that's why the guards are there. So we come to find out who that woman was, and I'm about to get there. So, and pretty much we find out that the woman that was behind it was Natasha, who's Greg's cousin, his kissing cousin. And we get a scene next with Stephanie thinks that she's going to go visit Greg, and she wants to confront Greg because she's thinking also that Greg is behind Senior's death. But as I said, Greg is just only one piece of the whole entire operation. So she goes to see Greg, only realizing that Greg is not there and Natasha's there. She pretty much has her guards close Stephanie in, and they go back and forth, and Natasha is one nasty trifling bitch because she starts going in on Stephanie like, I wanted to see what Greg was so into. I wanted to see the good old piece of black ass that got him thinking all kind of crazy, and I don't see what the hookup is. And then she was like, does Greg did that thing with you where he, plays with your clitoris and ties it in a knot? And she's like, oh yeah, he did that to me. And she was like, typical Greg. And then like Stephanie clocked back and was like, well, honey, maybe if you spend more time in the gym, maybe you can find a suitor outside of your family tree. I was like, Stephanie, you better get this nasty bitch with a trifling ass. And then finally Greg shows up and he dismisses Natasha and tells her to go the fuck off. And he pretty much lets her know that, look, you do not want to go against Natasha because Natasha's crazy and you don't want that. But I will deal with Natasha. But he lets Stephanie know that, look, you can't come here anymore because I don't want you hurt and I don't want you to get involved. And I know you're upset about what happened with Senior, but I had nothing to do with that. I wouldn't do that to you. And she was saying that, well, far as I'm concerned, I'm the least person that you need to be worried about. You killed my children's grandfather just got murdered. And, as far as that, I'm the least person you need to worry about because, one, you got Evan, and then you got, her family also being a part of that. Like, yeah, this is not gonna be good on in either way. So then, we get a scene with Bella and her best friend, you know, quote unquote, because I don't trust the bitch. Um, and then pretty much her best friend asks Bella, well, why didn't you hear somebody coming in your house, on the night that they took Joaquin? And she pretty much says that she was having fun with Ignacio in the room. And then like she was saying that, well, the funny thing is he did go to Brazil right after it happened, right? So maybe he has something to do with that. She said that he's part of a fucking multi-million-dollar family. Like, why would he want to kidnap him for money? And then finally Evan shows up. Well, finally, Evan does show up, but before that, she tells Bella that she needs to tell Evan the truth, and she's like, "I'm not telling him anything." And then Evan shows up. He's like, "Why the hell is she here? Why is she in the middle of this? I told you not to tell nobody." But then he pretty much says that, "Well, have you found?" She asks Evan, "Has he found out anything?" And he tells her that they found the little boy, and he's around the same age of Joaquin, and they found him dead. And immediately Bella falls apart. Then we get this scene with Natasha and Greg, and Natasha is one nasty motherfucker. And Greg pretty much saying that, you need to learn to back up. This ain't Syria. You just can't just be going around just killing motherfuckers left and right. And she's saying that, look, I was up here tying the loose ends, and I'm here to clean up all your mess. And you see her trying to throw herself onto him. So I'm like, y'all motherfuckers are nasty. Trifling as I don't know what. Then we see a scene with Inez and Rondell. Rondell was cleaning up and found, her father's chess piece. Because, Senior liked to play chess, especially with Evan. So she gets emotional. Then all of a sudden, Kent shows up. And Inez is like, this is not the time, Kent. And she's like, it's okay. Let me talk to him. And, Inez gives Kent this dirty ass look. And I'm like, something up. And they pretty much Kent and Rondell go back and forth and have a conversation, and she finds out that this motherfucker is planning to run for mayor against Evan. And all of a sudden Rondell flipped. She was like, oh, so here it is. All this time Evan was telling me shit about you, my father was telling me shit about you, and here it is, my father just died, and you're trying to run against my brother? Seriously? And she tells him to get his ass out. So, because the thing is, that's why Inez was upset, because it was on the local news, but she's so distraught about her father, she ain't even watch no TV. So she had no idea that Kent was planning to run for mayor, and I was just looking at Kent like, Kent is a real shady motherfucker. I think he does have feelings for Rondell, but he has even more focus on becoming the mayor, because we know that from the moment we met him, because he was the one that sicked Amara on to Evan and was saying that you need to go talk to his mistress, which was Daphne. So he wants to take Evan down because he wants to be the mayor of Atlanta. So regardless of how he may feel for Rondell, he really wants to be mayor. And after that, Rondell pretty much dismissed him and told him to get the hell out of here, and she was done with that. Then we see Joaquin is with some guy or whatever. He gets a knock on the door, and it's Bella's best friend. So this bitch had Joaquin kidnapped, and she's behind the damn ransom. And the dude that was holding Joaquin is her man. And she was saying that, what? You had him killed? And he was like, nah, he's right here. And I was like, oh, this evil bitch. Yo, that's supposed to be your ride or die. That's supposed to be your best friend who's supposed to be helping with your career, and you kidnapped her son for money. Someone was just telling me that she in all actuality, she hates Bella, and she wants what Bella has. So I can't wait to see what happens on the next episode, but that's where it ended. And if I missed anything, get down in the comments and let me know what you think. But until next time, everybody, take care.